talking about it anymore. And this will slip away yet again. And it'll continue to slip away until we start to really address what is the real issue here. And by the end of the hour, I hope I get to do so. My first guests were caught right in the middle of the attack. Please welcome James, Heather, and James to the show. Can I ask you a question first before we even start, James? Did you know Charles, Andrew, Andy?
No.
You didn't know him? No. You'd seen him on campus?
I see him on campus. I played hacky sack a couple times with him.
Did you? And he seem like a nice guy? Decent kid? Okay kid?
It's just there.
Just there.
I only saw him a couple times.
What happened on this morning? What happened? You were in the bathroom?
Actually, no. I was coming out of my teacher's classroom, Mr. Ellison's classroom, with my tennis racket and my PE uniform.
This was after first period or before first period?
This is after first period, but I start second block.
Okay.
I was coming out, and then I heard firecrackers.
Which you thought were firecrackers?
Right. And then I started walking down the hallway a little bit more. Then I turned just to see, and I saw Travis come out. His mouth was all bloody.
Come out of the bathroom. You went over to help him?
Yes.
In that period of time, then you saw Andy come out of the bathroom?
I saw Andy come back out and start shooting again. I'm all, this guy has a gun. And I ran to the girls' bathroom, barricaded my back against the wall. And my adrenaline was running, and I looked down, and there I was shot.
You were shot in the hip. And the doctors think you will make a full recovery?
Yes.
From that, correct? They took the bullet out the whole 9 yards?
No. The bullet entered and exited, and it cauterized the blood, so it, stopped bleeding.
Excellent. So the recovery time for you will not be as great. Now, just tell me now that that's happened, though. Let's back up. You just gave me the report of what took place. Now, what was going on inside of James when this was taking place?
I was shocked. I never thought it would happen to our school, and I didn't know what was going on.
Now that it's all said and done and you know who the perpetrator was, what do you feel about Andy?
I feel saddened for him.
Why?
I mean, it's just because, I see, even though I played hacky sack maybe a couple times, and then I see him around campus, everybody said he was a happy-go-lucky guy. Don't know why he would have done it.
Heather, what about you? Where were you at when this started?
I was about 10, 15 feet away.
From the bathroom door?
Yes.
This is out in a quad, like a common area in the school, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were standing out there getting ready for second block?
I was on my way to second block, yes.
And tell me what you heard and what you saw.
Well, it started out, and it started like the firecrackers. And then by the third one, everybody was down on the ground, and you kind of knew what was going on. So I kind of ducked behind a tree, and when it stopped, I got up and I ran. And
you took off running and kept running for a little while, right? You had a little bit of an asthma attack, stopped at a friend's house?
Yes. Well, I didn't know her. She just let me in.
You knew Andy?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was really close with him, but I knew him in passing, and I'm really good friends with his friends, and it was just kind of a thing. He knew my brother and everything.
And what did you think? Once you didn't find out it was Andy until hours later.
Yeah, it was about 3:30. I sat back, and I was just like, oh, and I started crying.
And now that you've had time to think about it, this was Andy. Yeah,
I mean, Andy was such a nice guy, always. Every time I saw him, he always had a smile on his face. It's like you never picture somebody doing that. He was so sweet.
So sweet. James, you, in some ways, risked your own life, too, just like this James did.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us what happened?
I just got to school, started second block, and I was on my way to my class, as everybody else was, and I'm walking through a crowd of people, and all of a sudden they start leaving as I'm hearing what I think is firecrackers, as I'm sure everybody else did. So I'm going over to them thinking, I like firecrackers, I want to have a little fun too.
Right.
So I'm going over and I'm looking, and there's a kid laying next to my foot bleeding out of his mouth. So I'm like, holy crap, what is this? Is it another prank because the school did a car crash thing where they simulated something and then taught us something out of it? I thought it could have been something like that until I heard more shots and saw the campus supervisor running out of the bathroom. And that was when I saw him get shot in the back. And he fell onto the ground and started to hobble away, kind of like army crawling.
And then you got him in the nurse's office and you turned around and ran back out again.
Yeah.
Why?
Because I wanted to make sure nobody else was hurt.
Did you see Andy out there?
No, I didn't.
You never saw him?
Never saw him.
Now, I do have to take a break, but this is very interesting, James. Your sister right?
Right.
Melissa?
Right.
Had a long conversation with Andy
About it, yeah.
about this 2 days before and 4 days before.
The night before.
The night before. She asked him if he was really going to try to do this. He had said that he was going to do something like this, did he not?
He never told me, but as far
As from what you've heard now,
yes.
supposedly he had said this. And your sister questioned him about it. Did your sister say something to you about that?
She's never said anything to me.
So how do you feel about this? Because in some ways, and I am not going to be one of those who, in this country right now, seems to want to blame children for not making the right decision and running up and telling somebody when a kid says something. But what do you think about your sister not saying something even to you? She should have told you, dude, Andy's like wigging out, man. I mean, the dude says he's going to go to school and shoot somebody. I don't know. What do we ought to do? She didn't say anything to you.
Yeah, I was shocked that, because I thought that she would have told me something like that. And finding out that it was someone that she knew, it made me angry, like at her, but not really at her, because, of course, like everybody's saying, they're playing around. It's just kids.
I want to ask the three of you some hard questions when we come back about whether or not we should be blaming these people. I guess Andy had conversations with multiple friends and had mentioned to them, I'm thinking about possibly going up to school and pulling a Columbine. And everybody laughed about it. And nobody took him seriously. And he said it multiple times. Now, you have a school that has been traumatized now forever. And a bunch of you will have to bear this forever. What do you think your friends should have done? Those kids should have done? You think they should have told?
If I was one of the guys, I would have told my grandma.
Would you? Would you have said something? What if I said, you know what? I tell you, I hate Miss Smith. Wish I could just go there and blow up that classroom. How many of you in this room have said, oh, I hate my boss. If I could just blast him one time. So should we all now be turning around every time we hear a friend say something like that and run to the authorities and turn them into the authorities and then you say yes? All right, I'm going to ask a question about why you said that when I come back. We'll take a break. We'll be back right after this. He said, I'm going to pull a Columbine. Did you use those terms?
Yeah.
You didn't believe him?
No.
Oh yeah, don't go to school Monday. And then I was like, what are you talking about? And he's all, something bad's gonna happen, that's all you need to know.
He said, I'm gonna pull a Columbine. Please welcome to the show Katie, Josh, and Melissa. Welcome into the show. All three of you were relatively good friends of Andy's, correct? If I can say it that way, good friends of Andy's? Yeah, all three of you. Josh, you were considered his best friend, were you not?
Yeah.
You hung out with him a lot?
Every day.
The weekend, well, really a couple of months before this happened, did not Andy start saying things in a way that implied he was not extremely happy at school?
He was talking about running away.
Running away. He had said multiple times, I'm going to leave, I'm going to Mexico, correct?
Yeah.
He then also said, I'm running away and going to go to Maryland, correct?
Yes.
Andy used to talk a lot of trash, in a way, if I say it that way, correct?
Yeah, he would say stuff that he wasn't really going to do.
So the weekend before this took place, when you guys were hanging out together, and he said, I'm going to pull a Columbine, did he use those terms?
Yeah.
He said it to you?
To a group of people.
To a group of people. You didn't believe him?
No.
Katie, did he ever say anything like that to you?
Yeah,
You were in that group, right?
Yeah, I was with him that weekend.
And
He told me not to go to school on Monday.
don't go to school on Monday. That was a warning that he clearly gave.
And then I asked him if he was joking around. He told me yes.
But Melissa, you didn't take this as a joke. You were the only person in the entire group who got really upset over this, did you not?
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about this. First time he said it was what, Friday?
I think he started talking about it on Saturday.
On Saturday. And he blurts this out. And you said what?
Well, at first he was like, I don't know, we were talking about other things first, and then he just like, he's all, oh yeah, don't go to school Monday. And then I was like, what are you talking about? And he's all, something bad's gonna happen, that's all you need to know. And I was like, what's going to happen? Just tell me. And he's all, well, somebody's probably going to shoot the school or something. And I was all, Andy, what are you talking about? Who is it? And then he started laughing, and he's all, and I was all, is it anybody I know? And he's all, yeah, you know him pretty well. And I was like, well, who is it? And he started laughing, and he's all, probably me. And I was like, are you serious? And then like, I was like really upset about it and stuff, and like he just kept talking about it.
And he did this, he talked about this for a while that day, correct?
Yeah.
And then at the end, when you finally, did you say something to Andy about, look, you're really upset, Melissa, or she believes you? Who said that? Somebody said it to him, and then he turned around and said what to you?
I told him just to shut up, don't even joke about that in front of her because she's gonna be upset.
Well, I was like crying, almost like on my bed. I was just sitting there, and like, and Josh was all, she really believes you, Andy. Don't do this. And he was all, I'm just joking. He's all, don't hate me, Melissa. I was just joking.
I'm not asking you this question to judge you. So for a second, see if you can stop and don't take this as a personal affront. But why didn't you say something to somebody, Melissa? Why didn't you tell your brother? You and your brother are fairly relatively close. Because he said that on Saturday, then he said it again to you on Sunday, did he not? Sunday night. Don't go to school. He was going to do, so why did you not say something to your brother? And the real question is, when he said it Sunday night, did you think he would do something?
Well, at first I was like scared about it because I didn't want something like that to happen. But when he would leave my house or something, it would just like, I didn't really like think about it that much. I just like kind of forgot about it, like, oh, and this is just Andy talking, you know. I just forget about it. I was just like, I didn't really think about it when he wasn't around me.
How do you feel about Andy now? Here's your bud.
I'm mad and upset at him. I mean, he lied to all of us and said he wouldn't do it, and I mean, we didn't think he would, and then he does it. I mean, he brought so much happiness into everybody's life that he was around, and then all of a sudden he turns around and like makes so much fear and sadness and stuff, and it's just like, you know, why did you do this? How could you have done it?
Josh, this was your best friend. There are people in town who have already threatened you, correct?
Yes.
There are people who are threatening you, correct, Melissa? And they're threatening you because, in some ways, some people have said that when Andy would joke like this, you guys would call him some names and make him feel like he was a chump, and maybe he did this more to impress his friends than he did to seek some retribution. Have you heard people say that?
Yeah, it wasn't us that were with him the whole weekend. It was a couple other friends at school that he said. He had said it not just that weekend, the week before that at school.
But what do you think about people's assessment of you? People saying that there was something you could have done. You knew him the best. At one point in time, you even talked about the guns that his father had, right? Two of you talked about that together?
Yeah.
And this is, listen to me, this is not in any way, shape, or form, because I will tell you very clearly, I'm sorry. And people can write me and talk about me all you want. It was not their responsibility. It's not a child's responsibility. Sorry. Because they don't have, I don't think, the tools. We have not taught them the tools. We are not even attempting to teach children the tools of how to deal with conflict resolution and those kinds of things, or to deal and help others' kids. We're not taught that. But there is an adult who was involved in this that was told the same thing. We'll come back, we'll ask the question as to why nothing was done. We'll take a break, we'll be back right after this. Rumors, there's all of the innuendo, there's all these things of the fact that Andy was being picked on, being bullied, being beaten up, being hit, having people stealing stuff from him, and supposedly everybody knew it. And nobody said anything about it. Now, was that true or was that false? You knew him the best, Josh. And for some reason, you weren't at school Monday morning. Why?
Because my friend stayed the night and we stayed up late. He just came back from downtown San Diego.
And I get that, but it had nothing to do with Andy's warning?
No.
To not be there?
I would have been at his house if I was awake to stop him. Because I was supposed to go there in the morning, and if he would have said anything in the morning about it, I could.
Did you know how angry he was? Because there must have been some anger here, brewing, for a young man to be able to grab a gun and walk into school. And I'm asking these questions not because I am trying to point anything at you. I'm asking you because I want to know. We all want to know. We want to know what was going on inside this young man's mind, if we can try to figure it out. So, did you know the fact that he was being beaten up?
He wasn't really beat up. He was picked on as much as any new kids that came around my part of the complex and stuff.
But some, I mean, even at times, some of the articles report that, you know, kids would walk up and smack him in the back of the head. Other kids would walk up and light their lighters and let him get hot and stick it on his neck. These are the things that people claim. Some young man, one of the young men who was shot, supposedly stole his skateboard. He was constantly being picked on, but at the same time, he constantly had a smile. Did you know about any of this stuff? His picking on? Did he tell you about it?
He didn't really say anything. I'd seen it a few times. Like, I'd see like a few people I didn't really know him. They just walk up and like hit him or something, and then he would just like look at him and laugh and walk away.
But just stop for a second and tell me about this. This is the norm on your high school campus? That kids can just walk down walking down the block and somebody walk up and just smack them in the side of the head?
No.
You say yes.
Yeah, we always played with each other, burning each other with ladders and stuff. It wasn't just Andy, it was all of us messing around with each other.
They were just joking around with each other.
But did you ever, I mean, I guess I'm trying to just get this and absorb it and understand it myself, but didn't anybody stop and think that maybe one person might not like to play that way? Because obviously there's one person who didn't like to play that way.
Me personally, I never did that to him, but I see people do it to him, and he would, I mean, he didn't say anything, never. Most of the time, people didn't pick on him that bad. I mean, they did, but not any more than other, like the same kind of size kids as him.
Other kids?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, please welcome James's Melissa's mom, Lisa, to the show. Lisa, how are you? You're kind of caught in a little bit of this crossfire yourself at home, are you not? Because your daughter, in some ways, supposedly knew.
Mostly, I'm in the middle on both sides because Melissa knew about it and didn't say anything to me or anybody, and then James was trying to help people. And
so you got one child who's a hero and another child who in the neighborhood looks like they were a culprit.
Right.
And what do you do, Mom? Well, are you going to school, Melissa? You going back to school? You're not going back to school. We already determined that. You're going to get homeschooled for the rest of the year. Yeah. And there are active threats against your daughter, are there not?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, I said earlier, I mean, the three of you kind of heard, you knew something, you heard a little bit about it, and gaffed it off as if maybe he was joking. Please welcome Josh's mother, Karen, and her boyfriend, Chris, to the show. Karen, Andy used to call you Mom, did he not?
Yes, he did.
He was that close to your family.
Yes, he was.
Chris, Andy had a long conversation with you, did he not? I'm asking. When he said it to you, he did express to you he intended to go shoot up a school.
Not as the way people want to say it.
Okay, then why don't you say it to us so we can get the story rather than the story that's printed in all the other paper. What did he say to you?
It happened really fast. Josh, Andy were in the house. They were kind of going in between the kitchen, the living room, Josh's bedroom, listening to music and everything. And something was said, and I didn't pay attention to who said it. It just was, oh, Andy's going to do something on Monday. And then they're saying, and either Andy or whoever said something that he was going to go shoot at the school. And these kids, they don't really learn because they like to joke around so much to see what kind of reaction they can get out of you. You know, there's all sorts of things that they can say just to get a reaction.
And you reacted appropriately. You said something to him, correct?
I said, I hope you guys are joking, you know, because that's what they do. They try doing anything to get an expression out of you.
But then was there anything else said? So then you said, I hope you're joking. You had a direct conversation, at least what's alleged in the magazines and articles. You spoke directly to Andy about him making a statement. Did that happen or that did not happen?
Yeah, it happened.
Okay, so in your speaking directly to Andy about, you just made a threat against some people at your school, or whatever the words were that you used, when that conversation was finished, did you think that he was serious? Did you think that this was a young man who was distraught? Did you think that it was a young man who had problems? Did he ever come to you and talk to you about the fact that I am so ticked that people keep hitting me upside the head, that people are stealing my stuff? Did he have a conversation with you like that?
Somewhat. We had talked about, like, the day board was stolen. The kids, like, put their boards and stuff in a certain boat by the school because they're not supposed to take them on campus.
And I said, it's going to be so weird if Andy's skateboard gets stolen today, because he had a brand new skateboard. And sure enough, I picked him up later that day over at Jack in the Box, and his skateboard got stolen.
So, in some ways, Chris, and this, you knew that Andy was distraught. You knew that he had an issue. He makes a threat like this. This is not a blame question. I just need to understand from you so that other people who are sitting around and watching the show and are sitting at home and watching TV and have another young child sitting in their room and makes a statement like this, what they should do or where they should think. So when you finished the conversation, did you think he's just joking, let it go?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, let me take a break right there, and when we come back, we're going to talk about that. We'll be back right after this.
Do you have a secret wish?
The conversation was over, though, and you felt like he might be joking. You still felt like you needed to call his father.
No, actually, I tried calling his father before I talked to him.
Uh-huh.
I tried a few times during the evening to call, and the phone just kept ringing. And so finally, when I did get the message machine, I said, you know, I left a message for Andy to call, because at that time I was actually calling him about something else.
But you do recognize now that everybody's angry at you in some ways, because they feel like as the adult in this story, you should have at least picked up the phone, called somebody and said, you know what, Andy, Ben, don't go to school tomorrow morning. Let's talk about this while we go see your father before school. None of those things crossed your mind.
Well, I mean, I talked to him for a while before he went to bed. I mean, I was like the last person he talked to, and I said, you know, get to bed and get some sleep. These guys, and I tried telling them, the more these guys joke around, you never know what to really like believe in what they're saying. Mm-hmm. You know, if they weren't the type that joked around very much, mm-hmm. and that was said, then maybe, yeah, I would have believed it. That's why I was trying to call his dad, because I have no idea if there's any guns in the house that he can get a hold of, and that's why I was calling to find out. If his dad would have said, yeah, and I would have said, hey, there's some things going around. But, I mean, I had, like, the littlest bit to know about what was said. I mean, things were being said the week before, I guess. I had no idea about it. I didn't find out until, like, Saturday.
I got you, but I will say this now as an example, and not to put this on you, but if I'm a parent at home, in this climate in America today, and I have kids hanging out of my house, and I hear one of those kids, 15, 16, 14, 13, 12, say, I'm going to go shoot somebody, I'm calling somebody. Give it to me. My next guest knew Andy before he moved to California and really was Andy's ex-girlfriend. Please welcome Kathleen to the show. Kathleen, you've attempted to reach Andy since he's been incarcerated, correct?
Yeah.
Have you spoken to him?
No.
You knew him for the years before. He just moved the year before out to California, correct?
Yes.
And he stayed in touch with you.
Yes.
And he called you and complained about things that were going on at this school. Did he not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why don't you give us all some examples? And the only reason why I'm doing this is not because I want you all to sit here now and say, well, you know what, this little boy was justified in what he did because he was picked on. But I think what we need to talk about is the climate of the schools across this country today. Because at the beginning of the show, I mentioned something and I said, we are not willing to look this in the face. And we as a nation still are not. We're looking for individuals to blame. And we're not paying attention to the fact that this school, and I think you will fill in some of these blanks. Andy talked to you often about how hateful people were at that school.
Every time I talked to him, he had something different to say, and it was never good. Like, he'd talk about some of his friends in a good way. Like Josh, I believe he spoke of him a couple times, and, you know, he seemed to really appreciate him. But almost everybody else he talked about was just, you know, these people were picking on me. They said that I look like I'm gay. They
wrote things like Andy's a fag on the desk.
Yeah, they made fun of him because of the way he dressed and talked. And
wait, the only reason why I use that term is because I want people to clearly understand there's a climate in some of our schools across America where this takes place in. And if you take a look at the schools that this takes place in, you will find a climate of hate. You can see hate. And if we have a breeding ground, it's supposed to be a breeding ground of knowledge, and it is a breeding ground of hate, do not question when hate manifests itself and surfaces in this way. Don't question. Let me take a break. We'll be back right after this.
Andy was troubled by a lot of events that occurred in the past and events that were still happening as he walked through the hallways every day. I was just wondering if anyone ever thought about or suggested any type of counseling to him, because there's a lot of counseling available for things like that.
That's a question I think we'd have to ask a parent. I mean, none of you guys ever talked about it. This is just a typical thing that happens in school, right?
He didn't seem like a guy that needed counseling.
He didn't seem like a guy who needed counseling.
He never acted like he was hurt by anyone or anything.
And that is something I think that the characterization of this young man in all of the print media, all the media that we've seen until we talked to him directly, is that he was a very nice young man. Always willing to try to get somebody else to smile, to make somebody else laugh. And got to a point that, I guess, he snapped. I don't know why. Please welcome the Executive Director of the Child Welfare League of America, Mr. Shea Bilchick, to the show. How are you? What can we do about this? What can we do to stop this headline from being around 6 months from now, a year from now, or is there anything that we can do?
These shootings are a wake-up call for us as a society. We need to be listening to our kids, watching for the warning signs, long before the weekend before the shooting, in this particular case, and the thousands of others, and take a look at what warning signs our kids are putting off. And as a society, Montel, we're paying attention to these shootings. We're not paying attention to the other indicators in our kids' lives in this country.
Right.
You know, our kids are being victimized more than they're offended.
Across the board.
Across the board. Child abuse and neglect, the suicide rates in this country, the bullying phenomena that we saw perhaps in this case and so many others. When there are surveys done about our kids and what life they live in their schools, the vast majority of them report this bullying phenomenon. In a recent Kaiser Foundation study with Nickelodeon...
Has not bullying been there since day one?
Right, but it's even more significant than it's been before. And what we're not doing is paying attention to it. And when kids get bullied, when they're teased, and they don't have outlets, and we're not responding to it, and there is easy access to guns,
right,
then they can turn to that gun and you have tragedy. You have the kind of lethality that we didn't have 10 years ago.
If you go back and you read the profile of each school that this has taken place in, you will find schools that are located in areas where there is a breeding ground for hate. You will look at a school, you will find a school that a year before, 6 months before, there was a fight on the football field, like in Columbine, between the jocks and the kids that ended up being part of the group that ended up doing the shooting. You will find that across the board. And in those schools, you will find the Aryan Nation, you will find the Black Panthers, not the Black Panthers, but you'll find an organization of kids that have segregated themselves and built a fortress kind of a situation. We walk down the halls, you constantly have to look around your back to make sure like you're in prison. You know, do I look out for the jocks? Do I look out for the band guys? I don't know who I'm going to look out for today.
That is not... I mean, that's the more extreme. That is not typical for a lot of these situations. It's much more basic than that.
Really?
You're talking about changing a whole culture. Right. You're talking about changing a whole set of norms for our society, about building tolerance and stressing tolerance, modeling that behavior, setting our kids clear messages that we'll listen to you,
but if
if something's going wrong, we'll pay attention to it.
But we're not even attempting to send that as a message at all. Tolerance is not the message that we are sending in schools when we allow children in schools to segregate the way they were segregated in that school. And as long as that happens in that school, you will breed hate. Period. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I would like to go back to something you said earlier with concerning Josh. You said that he didn't go to school that Monday. Is there a reason why you didn't go to school that Monday? Did you think that you wanted to just see, was he going to really pull this off, or were you just looking out for your own safety?
No, I didn't go because I stayed up late. I mean, I was heading down there. It was only like 9:20. I still had 5 more minutes to get down there. And I live right up the street from school. I still could have made it. And I slept in. He called my house in the morning because I was supposed to go over to his house and stuff because I go over there sometimes in the morning. And I was still sleeping, so I didn't.
He did call you?
Go over there, yeah.
Okay, let me take a break, and we'll be back right after this.
If you are in the New York area and would like to be a part of our studio audience, please call 212-989-8101.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. He's a clinical psychologist and clinical associate professor of psychiatry at Brown Medical School. And I'm sorry I'm on the tirade that I'm on, but when you go back, if you really sit down and read what took place at some of these schools where these shootings took place, what happened a year before or 6 months before, and you take a look at what was going on in the schools, we have a problem in how we administer our schools.
There is a part of it, and bullying's been around a long time, but it appears to be getting worse, and we don't have the resources to be able to recognize, you had said earlier, the difference between making a threat and posing a threat. Kids have been making threats a long time, and adults make threats. Right. But there's a difference between making a threat, I'm going to go do something, and posing a threat. And being in a position to be able to add it up, and it's not an easy thing to do. And we want to blame people when these things happen because they're terrible.
And if you notice today, we are not going to blame anybody.
No, we aren't, and I appreciate the way you're handling that. But it is, and it's an important issue for people to also teach adults and teachers and parents what those warning signs are, and when they add up, how to get help for that kid, because there isn't a profile.
But let's talk about that before we run out of time, because we come up with these ideas, okay? Look for the child who just transferred from one school to the next. He might be a little depressed, and that kid that's depressed might be the kid that might end up being a loner by himself, and that's the kid that you got to watch. Now, what if I'm the kid who came to a new school? Man, I don't like none of y'all. And I'm really well aware of my own personal self-esteem. I don't need you. I'm going to hang out by myself. Next thing you know, I got teachers telling me I got something wrong with me. Nothing wrong with me. You know, everybody's, that kid's a kid to watch out for. He might go shoot somebody.
Well, that's the risk, and that's what's happening now in schools. They're responding to threats that are posed, that are made that aren't necessarily posed, because they don't have enough information, and we don't have a clear profile.
To discern the difference.
We don't. I mean, I'm sharing with you because I've reviewed what's been printed about the 37 school shootings and 41 shooters. It goes back to 74.
Absolutely.
And there are trends. And I wanted to disagree on something. When 3 out of 4 of these kids can get access to firearms in a home or relative, that wasn't the case when I was a kid.
Okay.
And we are a nation that is well-armed. We are well-armed. So when you provide lethal means and all of these things add up, then look out. But it's hatred, and it's bullying, and it's not listening to kids, and it's not listening to boys. Just happened at first girl in terms of the young woman in Williamsport.
Last week, just shot a cheerleader.
So it's not just boys, but boys are this disconnected group, and when they're hurting and it adds up, they don't also just snap, by the way.
Back at our school, after this whole thing happened, we actually tried to start a Stop the Hate message, and we actually did like flyers and stuff, and we got in trouble for it. We actually got taken to the office and got in trouble for trying to pass out these flyers and spread the message of Stop the Hate.
Yeah. Stop it. And you know why? Because we have too many parents out there who like to perpetuate the hate. And too many other people out there who are happy with it. I'll get you in as soon as I come back. We'll take a break. Take a break. We'll be back right after this.
At Santana, I've been going there for almost 4 years, and all I've seen is voluntary. We've done stuff through the school to help stop the segregation, and it's just where people want to go. People want to hang out with their own race because they're going to feel safer there no matter what.
I've always felt safe, you know? I've always felt safe, you know? I'm very open to a lot of ideas.
So
but
do the
up
kids
until
at
now,
Columbine.
I felt very
So
safe.
do the kids in Paducah. So do the kids across America felt safe. But when you're in a situation where people throughout the course of the day can say disparaging remarks about other people and it is laughed about or completely gaffed off, can walk around and say, don't go over there, don't hang out with them, don't do this, that, you end up causing an environment in your school that you're not even aware of. That starts to set this whole thought process in motion that I don't want to be with them and they don't want to be with me, and one of them crosses the line, we're going to do something about it. And that's when this thing starts to explode. And when schools don't look at it and recognize the fact that I'm looking at my college campus, and when I see 3 white kids walk down that hallway and they get pushed, I need to do something about it. Or if I see a black kid go that way, I need to do something. When they don't do anything about it, that's how you end up with a child who's been burned 4 times in the neck, got a skateboard stolen, got this, got kicked, got that, and he walks back into school and says, I'm tired. Ain't happening anymore. Please welcome Mr. Julius Benetti to the show. Thank you, Julius, for being here. Vice President of Business Development, Reported.com. You want to do what? What does your company do?
What Reported does is it provides an online, anonymous website for children to be able to report incidents that might be troubling them.
And that is an option. I mean, I guess you need to have a facility where, because we know for a fact, maybe the 2 of you can address this when we come back, everybody's blaming this one and this one. You know, you should have said something. You should have done something. You should have been able to discern whether or not your friend was kidding or joking or telling the truth. And the truth of the matter is it's not their fault. They cannot be their brother student's keeper. They have to be their own keeper in a school. And so something like this may work. Let me take a break and I'll let you come in. I'll be back right after this. Very well. I hope that you all get to see someone, talk to someone, work through this, and then move on. It's not getting on with life. You're never going to forget this. But there are ways to at least deal with it, put it in the right place to be able to move on with your own life and not have to walk around scared. And I'm hoping that we as a nation learn from this one. Finally stop for a second and learn something. Understand that we need to take a closer look at our schools. We need to take a closer look at the fact that, I said it, but the student-to-teacher ratio in schools is ridiculous. We are paying for this. We got 30, 40 kids in a classroom and one teacher trying to figure out whether or not there's a child like Andy who's an extremist. It's not going to work, folks. So we as a nation have got to do something about it. President Bush has claimed that he's going to work very hard at trying to change things in our public school system. I hope that that does work. But, you know, I don't know. What you said, look for some of the warning signs. Are there some things that you can throw out there right now that we could just say to a parent to look for real quick?
There are the indicators of a child who begins to detach from their peer group, begins to isolate themselves. The grades go down. Maybe they start getting involved in drugs. They indicate their unhappiness about some things. You know, there are indicators that will be there. But there's a broader issue there, Montel. You talk about the President's message about leave no child behind in relation to education. Let's take that more globally. Let's look at leave no child behind in terms of all the things we need to do to adequately support them and nurture them. Absolutely. Protect them from being abused. Make sure they have adequate supports in schools, the kind of opportunities they need in their lives. We need all those things for our kids. And we'll see a lot less of this violence. A lot less of it.
Out of time. Join us on the next Montel.
Suspect. 2 official reprimands. 4 grievances filed by fellow agents.